no malchus, and not even a korban. Okay, which is very strange because we never find such prohibitions in the Torah, right? Prohibitions which are lavin, where you don't. I mean, there's lav shem bo ma'isa, of course, or where there's no activity involved. But here's a lav. Where's an activity involved? You know, you're having relations with the woman.
Says it's a smach b'yalma.
What?
The emotion that it just says it's a smach.
Yeah, you have to. I guess you could say it's rabbanon, but it's out. I guess that would make it easier. Mr. Brainwash, I think I actually have it underlined. No, you're right. So I guess you do have to say it's rabbanon taka. Problem is that my time. All right, fine. Then that case, you're right. It takes all the problem. I just forgot Moshe says that. So and Reida also concedes that all other anusim are also exempt. Meaning, let's say your brother raped somebody, right? So Eshes Achiv is also your brother's wife is also to you. But if your brother raped somebody, you can marry that person your brother raped, okay? And so on and so forth, right? Your son raped somebody. You can marry that person your son raped, okay? Mother Abidoshim Kitcha, and it also concedes that if you did marry your father's rape victim, Tafsaba Kiddushin, the Kiddushin does take effect. Rabbi Chagai Boakum Rabbi Yosef, Chagai.
That language is contrary to the notion that's in the Smach.
No, and then you know what? It's not a smachta because look at the next line. It's definitely not a smachta. Rabbi Chagai boikum Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Chagai asked for Rabbi Yossi, Ma'ushia Vlad Mamzer Rabbi Yehuda. Okay, marriage takes effect. Yeah, but what about if the kid, if you marry your father's rape victim and then you have a kid, is the kid a mamzer or not? So Mark gives a fascinating answer. Really, it's fascinating. Amalei, so he said. I really should look at the pasuk. Can I have the Eretz Chumash there, please? Thank you. So the pasuk in Dvarim Chav Gimel, where it describes it says, first it says, a man shall not take his father's wife and shall not uncover his father's skirt. Okay, because it's knaf is. That's what we're talking about over here. Lo yikach ish eseish aviv, les knaf aviv. Then it says, Lo yavo b'tzur da'kol krushavcha b'kal Hashem. He that is crushed or maimed in his privy parts shall not enter the assembly of the Lord. Then it says, Lo yavo mamzer b'kal Hashem, gam dor siri, lo yavo lohem b'kal Hashem. Then it mentions the prohibition of mamzer. So first you have your father's wife and your father's rape victim. Then you have a p'tzur daka, right, a problem with the genitals, and then you got a mamzer. Okay, so he says here, Amalei says, Lo yavo p'tzur daka of krus shrapcha b'kal Hashem hifsiko inyon. It's an amazing thing. He says there's an interruption in the middle. He says there's lo yavo p'tzur daka, the genitally challenged individual, that pasuk, which does not create mamzerus. Let's say theoretically a person who has defective genitals did create children, right? Did procreate children. So those children are not mamzerim. So that is obviously disrupts, according to the Gemara, the loyig al knaf aviv and loyava mamzer b'kal Hashem. It's amazing. So Yerushalmi, I don't sure it's not in the Bible anywhere. So this is
what you're trying to say is the loyal b'kal Hashem really the mamzer pasuk is going relates back to knaf aviv.
It doesn't. That's exactly what we say. It's not a mamzer.
I'm saying it's not, but why is it? In other words, it would have been were it not for the Krushivka pasuk in the middle.
That's right.
But the pasuk of mamzer is talking about a separate issue.
Even though it's right. Although that would have been, of course, this whole sug is very, very original. Okay. So the Yapsikin in Lein and Eshasap. So let's wait a second. You can't say this. Because that's the case, if you have relations with your father's wife, you shouldn't create mamzeros. Because that pasuk, the first pasuk here, says, Loikach isha seish aviv loigale knaf aviv. It's talking about also not just marrying your father's rape victim, but marrying your father's full-blown wife. So if you're going to say that the genitally challenged individual in the middle interrupts the flow and separates these guys from mamzerus, so then if you even marry a fellow's wife, it shouldn't be a mamzer, which obviously is untenable. If I'm marrying a fellow's wife, definitely creates mamzerus. So it says, no, Eishasav b'chal kol arayis soisa. Eishasav, that's back in Vayikra. That wasn't important to bring down Dvarim. It's not really a pasuk in Dvarim of any consequence. Back in Vayikra, Eishasav, the father's wife, is a clue with all other arayis. And of course you have relations with her, your kids are mamzerim, right? V'yotzim yiklala, so why was it brought down here? L'lamid al kol arayis l'mamzer. It comes to teach us that all arayis have an issue of mamzerus, right? In other words, it's brought down here in this briefly in this area here in order to tell us that all arayis have a shaykhus to mamzerus. All arayis cause mamzerus. So the Gemara says, well, if that's why it's brought down here, and in order to link it to mamzerus, so then the teitzeh nusaf tlamir konos onsim lesor. So then, let's say the same thing about the loyigalek knaf over here. That it's also going to tell us that all cases of all rape victims are all forbidden. Now, it's not clear to me exactly how we're working with this. Somehow what I want to say is that Eishasav was brought down here in Dvarim to tell us, remember, Moshe Rabbeinu said, I'm talking to you about mamzerus now. Remember that Eishasav and all the other arayis create mamzerus. But then it doesn't make any sense really what's going on here because I want to modify what I'm saying. No, but I can't modify what I'm saying because that's really what the Gemara says. One second. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly. I'm not sure what's going on here. In other words, Moshe Rabbeinu here is going short form over arayis, right? In Dvarim. So he's saying, you should know, he says, Am Yisrael, there's a parish of arayis. I'm not going to go over the whole thing. Just remember your father's wife and you'll know everybody else. Now, it seems from the Yerushalmi that he's mentioning this over here specifically in order to link it to Loyav Mamzer B'Kal Hashem. Yet then, he shifts gears. In other words, he makes parenthetical remarks about Loyav Alek Knap Aviv and Loyav P'tzua Dakot B'Kal Hashem. So, it's kind of strange that he begins the perek with, or the discussion with, Loyikach Ishes Eseshes Aviv. That which is connected to mamzerus. Then he goes off on a tangent and says, you shouldn't have relations with your wife, your father's rape victim, nor should you allow the genital problem people into the Kal Hashem. And then it goes back to mamzerus. So I don't know exactly how we determine what's a parenthetical remark and what's not. I really don't know. But in any event, the Gemara wants to ask, as a result of that, if Moshe Rabbeinu was reminding them, he's talking shorthand, so therefore, how do you know that if your brother rapes somebody, you can marry that woman? Or if your son rapes somebody, you can marry that woman. Maybe Moshe Rabbeinu was reminding them shorthand. He's saying, you should know that there's such a thing as your father's rape victim, which is also to you. And you'll know by extrapolation that all of the rape victims are also to you. Not just somebody your brother married, but somebody your brother raped. Says Marno. Says Mar, Eishasav b'chlal kol arayis hayis. Eishasav was included in all the other arayis. V'yotzas miklal lamid al kol arayis l'mamzer. It comes in the short form, teaches all arayis l'mamzer. But that's only because we know that it harks us back to Vayikra, where all the arayis were listed. Isach meimar anusa b'chlal hayis. Can you say that Anusa was part of some body, a corpus of knowledge concerning rape victims? And now it's reminding us that all types of rape victims are forbidden? There's no such linkage. The reason why Eish Sov is a short form which reminds us about the other rights is because the other rights are real and they exist and they're enumerated in Vayikra. But there's no other place where rape victims are real and enumerated elsewhere. So therefore this can't be serving as the short form to teach us that all rape victims are also. It can't be, because this is the first time rape victims are discussed. Okay. Says Mar V'teitze Eish Sov Utulamed al anusaso. Let the Eish Sov and Anus, it says here anusaso, but obviously it's incorrect. Let Eish Sov come and teach us about anusaso, which I guess may be the question which we asked him before, that there should be a mamzerus. In other words, forget about parenthetical remarks or parenthetical remarks. Let's link them together since they're in the same pasuk. He says, he says, interesting logic to kind of compel the concept of parenthetical remark here, which is that Anusa and Eshesav are paradoxical. In other words, if somebody is Eshe's father's wife, so she's not a rape victim. Somebody is a rape victim, she's not the father's wife. So therefore he's trying to say that you cannot, even though they're in the same posture, you cannot say, well, Eshesav is linked to Mamzer later on and tells all rights and Mamzerus. And Anusa Saviv is linked to Eshesav, and therefore it also teaches us Mamzerus. No, because Anusa Saviv and Eshesav are two paradoxical concepts. So even though they're in the same posture, the parameters cannot be the same. So therefore, Anusa Saviv has to be linked to Ptsuadak and Krushavcha, which do not cause Mamzerus. Okay, it's a very difficult sugya. I mean, Lamaisa clearly doesn't seem to be an asmachta, because we're dealing with the psukim themselves. But it's difficult how the psukim work. Okay. Says the Gemara further. Now it gets easier. For a while. Allah base. These are people who kill by sword. Harotseach. Somebody who murders. People of a city which worship over Zarah. If a person smote his friend, bein be'evan, whether with stone, bein be'barzel, or with metal, the kavash of or he poured water over his head until he died, or put him into a fire, he cannot get out of there, and he died, chayat. If you push him on the other hand into water or into fire, he can't get out, he didn't come out, then the guy died, then the person pushed him in his exam because he should have gone out. She's supposed to help if you sick a dog against somebody. She's supposed to know if you sick a snake against somebody. Part you are exempt because the snake, or even though you caused the death, but it's really the snake or the dog which is called the actual doing the death. Heshavas knows if you put a biting snake on his arm, then Rabbi says you're liable. Chacham you say you're exempt. That's much more direct according to Rabbi Yehuda. See if it says yad asher yamusbo yiko. It says if with a stone of a hand, meaning one which you hold in your hand, with which the person may die, you smite him. The yamas and he died. Most yumasamakeh, then the smiter shall die. Rotzeach, who is a murderer. Most yumasarotzeach, he shall be put to death. Similarly, Obichlates, it says if with a piece of wood held in the hand, that you must bow with which he will be killed. You smote the guy and he died. Rotzeach, who is a murderer, the murderer shall be killed. Now here should be inserted the line 2 lines down from here. It says, has to be that the stone is large enough to kill, or the wood is large enough to kill. In other words, it has to be a weapon which under normal circumstances would kill this individual. Not something which was an aberration and should not really have killed him. So it says the Gemara, how going back to where we were, when it says you kill with metal, it doesn't say that it has to be metal which can kill, by which he should die. Nor metal with which he would not die. Because even a small needle can kill a person. You could stick it into his windpipe, not his windpipe, his food pipe. And kill him. So therefore metal kills no matter how small it is. Wood or stone has to be of a shiur where it would have logically have killed. But metal can kill no matter how small it is, so therefore we don't gauge it to find out if it was the right shiur or not. Now, kivno keneged asus. Interesting. You put a person. This is not in the Bavli. The summit is, but not all of it. Kivno asus. You had a horse which was galloping, and you pushed this guy out in front of the horse. It's like pushing somebody in front of an oncoming train, right? Kivno keneged achetz. You put him opposite an arrow which already been shot in the air. You put him opposite a spear which has been thrown. And Mida Betzina, you put him in a place which is very cold, which is very big chiddush. Hishka Osa Maimraim, or you give him bad waters to drink. Heavier Satikra Me'elav, you remove the roof from over his head. The Yard of Kshami, and rain poured over him, Vargu, and they killed him. All these things, you're liable. Similarly, Pasak Amas Amayim Allah, you opened a dam on a canal over him. And the water swept over and killed him, you're liable in all those cases. Okay? My time at the Rabbi Yehuda, why is the Rabbi Yehuda say by a snake, you're exempt even if you put the snake on him with its fangs extended? I'm sorry, Rabbi Yehuda says you're liable. Why? Because the venom is already in the holes in the snake's fangs, and therefore, in essence, you're applying to him the murder tool. The venom is in the snake's fangs as you apply the snake to that individual.
So is this garmi?
I mean, yeah, it's garmi. But, well, the thing is like this. If it would be garmi, if it's correct, it's a machlokas and metzias here. It's a machlokas in the actual reality, what it is. Matam the Rabbanon, what a Rabbanon, loam ein eres nosem bein kovim achi yachser v'yoki. No, the snake doesn't have the venom in its fangs until it bites and then it regurgitates the venom into its fangs. So it's interesting, word karmi, like you put the guy in front of the galloping horse, or the snake, you put the guy in front of the venom itself, not in front of the fangs, but in front of the venom, then you'd definitely be liable. The shaila is if the venom is in the fangs, but it sounds here that in terms of murder, everybody's like Dan Din of the garmi, even though you didn't do the actual maisa. So direct causation is generates the death penalty. Okay. If you smoke your friend whether with the stone grove or fist, from dulam and they reckon you're going to die. Then you got a little bit better. Then you got worse again and died. Chayav, then the smiter is liable to death penalty. Exempts you because there's an indication. So the Gemara immediately says the end of the Mishnah is messed up. Kini matli, it's at the end of the Mishnah. Rabbi Nechemia says if you came a little bit better, the murder is off the hook. Chachamim say no, the murder is still on the hook. It's evident to us that even though we got a little bit better in the middle, that was a smoke screen, really died because of the blow which you administered to him. Okay? Rabbanan are now expanding on this. Rabbanan say Shnei Omdim Rabin Alom Recha. Since initially we reckoned the guy was going to die. And in the end he did die, which is like a second reckoning. The fact that in the middle there's a reckoning which indicated that he got a little bit better, that reckoning is drowned out by the other two. And on the contrary, the Chemim says the middle reckoning is a more accurate assessment of its true state, because it's after you recovered somewhat from the blow and before complications set in. So that actually was Rabbal Shteim, that overwhelms the other two, and that's the one which we go by. My type of Nechemia, where possible this Nechemia derived this concept from, because it says it says if the person, the victim, got up and walked outside on his staff, then the perpetrator is cleansed. Would you actually contemplate that this guy, the victim, is walking in the marketplace, and you kill the guy who hit him if he survived? Attempted murder is not a capital crime. Elo, what it means to say is afilu meis, even if afterwards the guy died, it should be machmas makar rishona because of the first blow. spots you're still exempt. That's what pasuk means to be machadish. That even if later on the guy did turn around and die, but since in the middle he was holich bachutz al mishanto, he was able to walk outside, so then, according to Rabbi Nechemia, we don't kill the murderer. Okay? My time Rabbanan, Takut's good for. Where did Rabbanan learn that we do kill the murderer in that case? So it says, because it says, V'loyamus, if he does not die, v'nafal mishkav, but he falls into a bed. So then, that's the beginning of that pasuk, right? So, it says, if he doesn't die and he falls into bed. So, isn't that, why do we need both? Ela b'shalom dulamisa. So rather it means to say, if he doesn't die and doesn't fall into bed, means the only time litra of duk is that if he never, ever was reckoned to be, to have been killed, figuratively speaking. So therefore, in that case, since they didn't reckon it's going to die, that's where the murderer is off the hook. Says Gemara, wait a minute, Im b'shalom du is all still in Rabbanan. Im b'shalom du l'misam, they never reckon it's going to die. B'daksi, by that it says, Im yakum b'shalom chutzah mishantov v'nikar makeh, that only if the guy gets up and walks on the staff, then the smiter is exempt. Ha'im lo kayam chayav, it sounds like if the guy doesn't get up, then the murderer is liable. How could the murderer be liable? They never made a reckoning that his blow was worthy of causing death. Ella, rather, what it must be talking about is like this. B'shamdu l'misa. It's talking about where they reckon that he's going to die. And then he got better. And then he got sick again. That in that case, we do kill the murderer, even though in the middle he was somewhat healed. So that's Machlokas Rabban Rabbi Nechemia. Says the Gemara, again, according to Rabbi Nechemia, as long as he got healed in the middle for some time, there's no death penalty. According to Rabbanan, no, even though he got healed, no, since they reckon he was going to die to begin with, and he did die, so therefore the murderer is put to death. Right? Says the Gemara, wait a minute. If we're talking about, like Rabbanan say, a case where the guy was initially judged to be on his way to death's door, right? So that's the case. How come it says that in that case you have to pay unemployment and doctor bills? You're paying unemployment and doctor bills for a dead man. How could there be such a thing? So says the Gemara, Rabbi Yerushalmi says, now here are amazing machlokas. Rabbi Yerushalmi says, Chidush Mikahu Sheyite. Yeah, it's a special custom. Even though, what happens like this. Ruvain hit Shimon. They took Shimon to the panel of doctors, basic panel, doctor said Shimon's going to die. So normally we would say, what? Kila Rabbaneh. Well, Ruvain doesn't have to pay anything because Shimon's going to die. So it's a special custom says, no. Based on something that says, go pay up. Since he didn't die on the spot, you have to pay anyway. Chidush mikro Yishalim. Unique situation. Running against normal grain of Kila and Rabba Mineh.
But isn't normal Kila and Rabba that it has to be that it's only Kila and Rabba if it's at the same moment anyway? So that
it was the same moment.
The death wasn't. I mean, you're saying that which caused
the blow, yeah. Okay? The blow caused the death, the blow caused the damage, you still have to pay. Normally you say Kila Rabba on that. Okay? So it's a special chidush mikro here. That's what you say. Special clear sakosas. So says the Gemara. Rabbi Voshem said Omer. He says differently. He says no, it's a factual error. Shultol saisa. They made a mistake. You think that when they reckon the guy's going to die, that he was talking going to die. He wasn't going to die. They made a mistake. Erochanami. Had he for sure been on death's door, the taka would have been Kila Rabbaneh, and there wouldn't have been a payment. But obviously, since he got somewhat better, we say that they made a mistake in their original estimation. Ma mafkabina. What's the difference between the positions here? Well, it's a chidush mikro. We say there was a mistake. So it says, a case where he became somewhat better, and then he became worse again. Chayav. You're liable. Now, Rabbi Cheir is not necessarily because it's not talking about Rechemia, so we're not going to focus on that. So it says liable. What does it mean liable? In other words, again, he got somewhat better. and then he got sick again, and he died. He who says that it's a Chiddush Mikra you have to pay. Nosan. If you paid, you paid. And the way the Meich HaMayim puts in here, Lo Nosan Yitein. Even though the guy died, he died. And you know he was going to die because the original reckoning was for death. But since in the middle he got slightly better, you pay unemployment, Ripui Sheves Tsar Nezek Boshes. Okay? So it says Amara, Lo Nosan, Mao Sheitain. Now, what about if he didn't pay yet, right? But at the time, so the time which the guy died. So the truth is, the Gemara here is really short. It's unworldly short. It says here, Madam ar omichatosay lo nasan eno milo sheyitain. If the guy, remember, if there was an Omid and Misa, then he got better, then he died. So the Gemara is saying, according to the opinion which says Omid Shaltosaya, the only time you pay is when it was a mistaken reckoning that the guy was going to die. Here, obviously the reckoning was correct, so you don't have to pay. But according to Madam Rose, Chiddush Mikro Sheishalim, there's no, though it's not explicit Gemara, even though the guy died. Since the middle is the time when he got slightly better, and despite the fact that originally we thought he was going to die, and he did die, nevertheless it's the time when he got better, so even if you didn't pay before the guy died, you still pay afterwards the Yorshim. You pay the heirs. Because according to accumulated robbing, they never kicks in a case where there was a slight improvement. They only kick in where it was completely downhill from the moment of the impact. But where there's a slightly improvement, so then in fact, you're actually going to have to pay. And again, that's the machlokas. So if you hold that the only time play is when you can say the original reckoning was a mistake, so then if he dies in the end, even though he got a little bit better in the middle, so then there should be no payment. But if you hold that it's an issue of Chiddush Mikra, then even if he died in the end, then there would be a payment. Says Nas and Maushito. Now, according to the opinion which holds, well, Omichalto, so you should have to take. They should be allowed to take back that was paid. Says Masisa Messiah L'day Masisa Messiah L'day. We can bring a proof for each one. Okay. Now I'm going to learn this like the Megillah and Ephraim, which changes the Kirsa somewhat in these cases. Masniyas Messiah Rabbi Yosef Rechina. The following bright says like Rabbi Yosef Rechina, the one who said that it was Oimet Shalto, so only a mistake. So according to him, you'd expect that you get it back, right? Amdul L'chai. They reckon he's going to live. Umeis. This is a quote from some brisa. They reckon a guy's going to live and then he died. It should be ad emosai monim lo. Until when is there still possibility of paying for unemployment and stuff? It should be ad sheyachbid, until he gets sicker. Okay? Hadamras teaches us that only if we can say legitimately that the reckoning is correct and that he was going to survive and that he did survive, then there's payment. But if you went downhill subsequently and you had not paid yet, then you don't have to pay. Because that means that which you thought he was going to survive was a mistake. Because he didn't survive, he went downhill. Omchatos works both ways. It all depends on what ultimately results, whether you're going to have to pay or not. Okay? If on the other hand you hold that it's a Chiddush Mikra, so then, instead of Item Mishor Rishon, it should say here, Hayisi Noisen Ad Shosh, you almost know, until the very time that he dies, I should have to pay. Why should I have to pay? Because it doesn't matter, it's a Chiddush Mikra that you pay. And the truth is, even after death, you might have to pay according to the previous Gemara. But certainly until the point of death, you definitely have to pay. It's not just when he starts going downhill that you start paying. No, you continue. You don't stop paying when he starts going downhill. You still pay until the point of death because of Chiddush Mikra. Okay? Hodamras teaches us the fact that it says here that once he starts going downhill, you don't pay any longer. I went back one, sorry. Masisa Messiah Rabbi Shimon Lakish. Now, there's a brayso in there which is sister Rabbi Shimon Lakish who says that it's a Chiddush Mikra. How so? What does this brayso say? Amdul Misa. They assume he's going to die. The Chaya. and he survived nevertheless. Meimasai should be Meimasai noistnim lo. From when do we start paying him? So says the Gemara here, instead of be Mishiach, it should say Mishosh Yaakov, from the time he starts getting better. Even though eventually he's going to die. Or despite the fact that so far they reckon he's going to die, and he may well yet die, but nevertheless, since right now he's been getting better, you got to pay. Why? Because the Chirish Mikra. Okay. Now the Gilin Ephraim throws in here. Hadar teaches Chirish Mikra sheite. So Chirish Mikra you pay. If you're going to say it's a mistake, in other words, you go by mistake, that either you give retroactively because he got better, not just from the time when he started getting better, but retroactively, or if he died in the end, you wouldn't give it all. But there's it would have nothing to do with whether he started getting better or not. It would have to do with what ultimately resulted, correlated to what happened in the beginning. Okay? It's a little bit of a mess what the Shar Gilin Ephraim throws in, but that's what he throws in. Rabbi Yisrael said, Leis Khan, we don't talk about here Mishe Yokil. Okay? It says in Mishiach, but it should be Mishe Yokil. Ela Mishar Rishon. He says, Ein Chanami. Rabbi Yossi Taka learns, or I assume this is Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Chanina, that since Oimit Shel Tos Hoya, so Taka, even if that he's gonna die, right? Since he didn't die, he started getting better. So Taka, the Chiv of payment is retroactive from the point of impact. Now, believe me, I don't know what the nafkamina is. Since he didn't pay, what difference does it make? He went back to Shor Shina. Now I know. You know what it is? L'gabe shibud. Vis-a-vis shibud. In other words, that'll be the nafkamina. Nafkamina is from when does a lien attach to the property that if you sold off the property, the buyers are going to have to give it back. If you hold it, it's a chidush mikra. So the chidush mikra only kicks in once he starts getting better from that point in time. And anything which was sold beforehand is not under lien. If you hold it was Omid Shel Tos, though, so then it all kicks in from the beginning, and from there the chi of the obligation attaches to the property. Okay, very good. Says the Gemara. Now here, this whole Adam Marah, the Gilin Ephraim just takes out because he twisted it around and put it 2 lines previously. Okay, now a new issue. He called Yoda. Okay, so I'm skipping 2 lines. He called Yoda v'tzavas. He hit a guy in his hand, and the hand goes bad. Now I'm going to ask you, the doctors say, fascinating thing. In Miktar Yodei, if you cut off the guy's hand, Chai will survive. If you don't cut it off, so he has gangrene, he's going to die. So what do I have to pay for it or not? Ma'u sheyitein dmei, do I pay for his hand or not? In other words, if he's going to die, I don't have to pay anything, right? But now that he didn't die, to have what? Yeah, do I have to pay for his hand in order to keep him alive? Okay? But I say, no, let him die. They don't have to pay anything. So it says, let's hear from here. It says, there's two episodes in Parshas Mishpatim. Both are about people who are fighting with each other. One is when they fight each other, and the Chiyuv is when they fight each other. So the thing is like this. Korban Eidah says, in the Parsha of Ki Yirvun, 2 people fighting with each other, it says Ripui and Shevis. It talks about doctor bills and unemployment. And that's about where the 2 people intended to hit each other and do things to each other. In the Parsha of Ki Natsu, it's about where there's a third party who's damaged, who unintentionally is damaged. A woman who's pregnant is damaged there. And then it talks about Nezek and Tzara, damage and anguish. And that's talking about where you didn't intend to hit that third party. Okay? So why is it broken up? Why is it broken up into 2 separate parashas? One talking about where there was an intentional fight. Well, they're both intentional fights, but one where the damage is inflicted intentionally, or one where it's talking about corollary damage, which is unintentional. So he meriva, he matzus. In final analysis, meriva and matzus can be the same thing in Hebrew. Matam kinatzu, kirvun kinatzu. Why break it up in 2? So it says, it means to say, this halacha, when it's intentional damage, devolves on the halacha of unintentional damage, and the halachas of unintentional damage fall on intentional damage. Okay? So that means that nezek and tsar which are mentioned in corollary damage, apply to intentional damage. And Ripui and Shevis, which are applied by intentional damage, they apply to corollary damage as well. So it says, I understand that whenever you're liable, if it's intentional, you're still liable when it's unintentional. Why is that? Because if it's intentional, you intended to kill the guy. Truth is, you intended to kill the guy. You're liable, nevertheless, if you didn't kill him for Ripui and Shevis. So lachas kam, you don't intend to kill because it's corollary damage. You're certainly liable for payments, right? That makes sense. So come in, tell us that whatever payments we required on miskavin are required on she'einu miskavin. She'einu miskavin on miskavin, but the payments that which you're liable if it was corollary damage, that you're liable if you intend the damage. So it says, "Marim b'sheinu miskavin u'mischayev kolo koshken on miskavin." No, it's the opposite of what I just said before. I made a mistake. It says, forget about the killing issue for the moment. He says, a person who is intent to cause damage is more liable than a person who causes corollary damage. What I mentioned about the killing is a mistake. It says a person who intends to cause damage is certainly more liable than a person who causes corollary damage. So therefore it makes sense to say whatever a guy who intends to cause damage is liable is a case of corollary damage is liable as well. Right? No. It's a chiddush that you're liable even in she'einu miskavin. The question is, she'einu miskavin. One second, now I'm confused. Nichas miskavin al she'einu miskavin. So what does that mean? Oh, okay, like this. Say, the fact that the psukim link the two is necessary to tell us that whatever a person who intends the damage pays, even a person who doesn't intend the damage must pay as well. Because I would think he's less liable. A guy who causes corollary damage, I would think, is less liable. So therefore, the psukim have to be intertwined to teach us that whatever a guy pays if he intends, he pays unintentionally as well. However, she'einu miskavin, that which a guy who damages unintentionally pays, it doesn't tell us that a guy who damages intentionally pays it. That's obvious. If she'einu miskavin, in case corollary damage is liable, though koshken miskavin is not certainly liable on a case where he definitely has in mind the damage. So those payments definitely apply. So what is that coming to tell us? That the she'einu miskavin, what's it coming to tell us? So it says, more turning the page, it's Pashat, based on our previous corner. Elakini, this is going to
it's nicha that we have to use a pasuk to have a pasuk to tell us.
Right. Elakini, this is what it's going to tell us. He called yodo, our case, you hit a guy in his hand. It's of us, and it got shriveled, whatever. Amra said, the doctor said, imekata yode chayu. If you cut off the hand, he'll survive. On that, take out the word maushar, so takes out, sheyitin dmei yad. He has to pay the value of the hand. In other words, even though he's an eino miskavin, he didn't have in mind to hurt the hand, he had in mind to kill him. But nevertheless, he has to pay. That's what going to tell us. That even though you didn't have kavanah to hurt the hand, you had in mind to kill him, right? No, that's not it. Not you had in mind to kill him. Even though you didn't have in mind to hurt the hand. Well, I'm not sure what you had in mind to do. I don't know exactly what you had in mind to do. I'm not sure if it's relevant. What it's going to say is that even though this is not the damage you intended, so it's necessary to do this in order. Yeah, okay, this is a shot. Even though you didn't have in mind to have his hand amputated, right? That wasn't your intent. And the truth is, it's not necessary to amputate his hand. He might die if you don't amputate his hand, but you didn't actually damage his hand in a way which requires the amputation. So therefore, I might say you're liable. You're not liable in this payment because you're eino miskavin that they should cut off his hand. That's going to tell us that nevertheless you're liable in this case. Now, it's just like you're liable in the case of miskavin, you're liable in the case of eino miskavin. For corollary damage, you pay the same like you pay for intentional damage. That's what it means to tell us. Okay, so it's still a little bit messy, but that's the idea. Okay, says Gemara, K'madat mar tamon. Just like I said over there, chidush mikro sheyitein. It's a chidush that you pay, even though there was an aymed lemisa. We said it Amrav. Because here, take out the word the meyayad. because that was talking about an Omer Aleph, it was Chiddush Mikra, that he pays Shevis and Ripui and all that. The Kah Chiddush Mikra Shitei D'mei Hayad. Here it's a Chiddush Mikra, this is the Gemara continuing. Here it's a Chiddush Mikra that you pay the value of the hand. In other words, even though that wasn't your intent, nevertheless you pay for the value of the hand. So this is finishing up the answer. You pay for the hand, even though, as far as you're concerned, let them not take off the hand. He'll die, but you didn't damage the hand. No, you have to pay nevertheless. Rabbi Yitzchak Shah, Rabbi Yitzchak asked, Amdur l'chaim, they reckon a guy is going to live. Umeis, yet he died. Is there a payment of Shevis and Ripui? Now, I don't know if Rabbi Yitzchak saw the previous Gemara, the whole discussion of Chiddush Mikra and Omid Shaltos. It sounds like he didn't see it. It sounds like it's a separate discussion. So he reckon this guy is going to live and then he died. So they have to pay Shevis and Ripui to his heirs nevertheless. Says Mara, it should be the good French church that don't people die? In other words, since one he doesn't hold to Omid Shaltos, he holds the Omid is valid. Since they were Amdul L'chaim, so therefore you have to pay him. If he dies, you have to pay the heirs. How he died? He died for some extraneous reason, right? We came to see Rakshiv, Tohi Tebra, Poira pay, Chayli Tot Shevis Ripui. So Xeris Akosik, you have to pay nevertheless. And vice versa as well, it's L'chumr in both directions. Yitzchak Shor, Yitzchak asked, Amdul L'misa. They reckon he's going to die. V'chaya. He survived. You have to pay Shevis and Ripui. So here too he says again, that sometimes people are supposed to die, they survive. So he doesn't pay attention to the Oymed here. He came and they'll see, in other words, here it's L'chum in the other direction. Where the Oymed was L'chaim, even though he died, we make him pay. And here, where he survived, even though the Oymed was L'misa, we make him pay as well. Why is that special? Because of the same thing. We came to see Rakshif Toyitim Rapoyer Pei Chayav Litain L'Shevis U'Ripui. The Rakshif Toyitain, the rock trumps any other logic. So he doesn't go with the whole thing of Omid Shaltos, Chiddush Mikra. Lamais just says you have to pay in any event, no matter what the circumstances are, as long as there was some life, either temporary or permanent. So there has to pay a payment of Shevis U'Ripui. Okay. Halachadam. This guy was being you had a mind to kill an animal, Vargasam, you killed a human being. Lakav, you had a mind to kill a goy, Vargasam killed a Jew. Then if you had a mind to kill stillborns, Vargasam, you killed a viable child. Part your exam. This guy most of you had a mind to hit somebody in his hips. Wouldn't have killed him on his hips. Oliva went on his heart. And had enough velocity to kill his heart. And the guy died. Part your exam because he didn't have a mind to hit him that way. This guy had a mind to hit him on his heart. It had enough to hit him to kill him on his heart. But it went on his hips instead. And should not have killed him on the hips. And nevertheless he died. Potter, you're exempt because that wasn't, even though it's attempted murder, but it was patched up to attempted murder. You're a klutz. You killed him, but you killed him in the wrong way. That's good for you because you get off the hook. Okay? So we had a mind to hit a large person. Would not have killed a large person. Went on a small person and had enough velocity to kill a small person. Who he died. Potter, you slow clam. Because that wasn't your intention. His guy had a mind to kill a cotton. Had enough velocity to kill a cotton. Went on an adult. Shouldn't been able to kill an adult. But he died anyway. Potter, you are exempt. Because again, there wasn't in mind to kill that way, that person. But he had in mind to kill somebody on his hips. And it could have killed on his hips. And went on his heart, and he died chayiv. In that case, you're liable. Similarly, if you had in mind to hit an adult, he could have killed the adult. Went on a child who mace and the child died, chayiv, you're liable as well. Rabbi Shimon argues on this. He says, even if you had in mind and you had the capacity to kill one and killed another instead, Potter, you are exempt. Okay? So Rabbi Shimon's famous Shita, which we passed him, by the way. He had in mind to kill Reuven and instead he killed Shimon, even though it had enough velocity to kill both Reuven and Shimon. Since it wasn't your intention, you're off the hook. Okay? Now, Chizkiah, according to Shai Teresol, this is Omar. Now, the Meichel Mayim learns differently, but I'm going to learn like the Shai Teresol. Chizkiah Omar Zargas Evan,
He threw a stone, it had enough velocity to kill. Hamis says that it killed the guy, and at the same time broke somebody else's kalim. The case in the Bavli. Zara chaitz v'kar shirayim belichosa. You shot an arrow, and while it was going, it ripped somebody else's clothing. Okay? So in this case, it says, instead of Zechidish, B'zel Kochidish, Shartis, so Goris Potter. In this case, we say Kilim Rabmane. Okay? Chizkiel Shoyel, he asks a question like this. Zohar Gasav, and he asked through a stone. V'loya B'kdem, he said, it was not strong enough to kill. Haim is to say he had it killed. V'shiva is killed, and at the same time, it broke somebody else's vessels. B'zeh Chidish Akosa, B'zeh Lo Chidish. It's possible that Kilim Rabmane is a Chidish of the Pasuk. In the first case, when you were involved in the act of killing and it was going to kill. But in this case, perhaps you are chayev to pay, because your act of killing here was not an intentional and liable act, because you didn't, even though you did kill, because this stone was not strong enough in order to kill, so maybe you're liable on the clothing. It's interesting what the, who says there? The Shelas David Karliner. I don't know if, he says, you know what, but Yerushalmi, it's interesting, Yerushalmi's question, he says, it only asks when I threw a rock, which is not strong enough to kill, it killed Reuven, at the same time ripped Shimon's clothing. So it's a shaila, maybe you're chayav on Shimon's clothing. But the Yerushalmi is pushing, even in this case, where it wasn't strong enough to kill Reuven, and killed him, nevertheless, they put on Reuven's clothing. It's only Shimon's clothing. Okay? So, which is, I'm not sure exactly what the difference should be, but that's what he wants to say. Which is the Yerushalmi's question, only on the other guy's clothing and on his own clothing. Okay. Says Gemara, here it says, Rabbi Shimon, the Shaita, so changes and makes it a header from Mishnah. Rabbi Shimon, I feel this guy, Potter, he had a might kill Reuven, still killed, said Shimon, you're exempt. And that, Elon the Bay Rebbe, Tanya, those that also Rebbe learned, I feel this guy be out of mind, it should be, instead of Aragazeh, should be Echad, Mayhem. You had a mind to kill one of them, Potter. What does it mean? To be Rebbe, what the house Rebbe said, it goes like Rabbi Nosson said. What did Rabbi Nosson say? The Tani, B'Shem, Rabbi Nosson, you're standing next to a group of people, all Jews. And he said, I have a mind to kill one of you. And he shot into the crowd. He's Potter, right? Even though he shot into the crowd. And that's even, I feel it's Kavin La Roga Zevar Potter, this whole change that the Vein Tzach goes out saying that he's Kavin La Roga Zevar Potter. But if you had in mind to kill one of a group, you're Potter. Even though you had in mind to kill one of them, since you didn't actually select that one and intend for that one. And of course, if you had in mind to kill Reuven instead of kill Shimon, you're definitely Potter in that case. Okay? Let's get to Amrav. A murder got mixed up with other individuals, including the all exempt. You have them off the hook. So Kibbutz says you put them into the prison and you starve them to death. You know that whole business to do with the kippah. You know you feed them barley till their stomach bursts. Any people's chayim got mixed up with each other. You'll do the makala, they get the lighter death. And it's called misrafim. People supposed to be stoned. People supposed to be burned. They get stoning. Because he holds that burning is more severe. No, you get burning. Because they hold stoning is more severe. You give them the lighter one. Shimon said we had this previously in the Masechta. We're burning, not more severe. You wouldn't have given it to the daughter of a Kohen who's mizana. Must be a very strong punishment. They said the opposite. We're skilling not more severe. It would not be given to blasphemers, although they kochavim and to idolaters. So that must be more severe. People supposed to be killed by sword or got mixed up. People supposed to be killed by suffocation. Rabbi Shimon says sword is lighter. You kill them all by sword. Suffocation is lighter. You kill them all by suffocation. Rabbi Yochanan said. Our mission says we kill them all by putting them into the dome. Is a rotzech got mixed up with all sorts of kosher people. It's their bad luck. So Gemara doesn't like this. And Ephraim, most Achronim says, throw in a line here. They say, Ibro says, Yisai B'ksherim he Mastis of our story about a murder got mixed up with kosher people. B'dotin and kosi so the kippah. Does that mean that you put them into this dome and give them the stomach bursting treatment? Doesn't make any sense. How can you possibly do it? So Rabbi Yochanan must have meant that we put them under lock and key until we understand what's going on, I guess. But the murder just goes on. No, everybody hears a murder. Talk about a murder where the judgment was not yet pronounced. The he got mixed into murder. The judgment was pronounced. The Masi said so much about it. That's where he put them into the dome and give them the stomach bursting treatment. Shmuel man now. B'shvorim it was he. So I'm talk about an ox among oxen. A whole bunch of oxen who killed. An ox who killed which got mixed into other oxen. So then we make sure all the oxen die, right? Even the kosher oxen. So I saw that the place he discussed, I guess, this issue of rov and bittul barov, which applied to oxen, but we're not going to get into it right now. Says more no, I don't like that either. Even shor b'shvorim he masisa b'dotin and kosa so b'kippah. What do you have to dafka put him into a kippah? Well, what's the point? Either kill him outright, or maybe not nigmar din, or maybe you can slaughter them and eat them. Why kippah? Why dafka this stomach bursting treatment? We don't like that. Okay. Rabbi Shimon Omer Chamuris Reifa Miskila. Now the truth is that I think according to the Ephraim we take it out of here. Sorry, I missed that. According to the Ephraim, that line that line is deleted. Rather, we took that line and turned it to we cut that line out and pasted it as the question Rabbi Yochanan on top. It could be that our Gemara is about an ox among oxen, and since we can't kill them, we put them into the dome. Rav Shimon says burning is more severe than stoning. Rabbanan say stone is more severe than burning. Rav Shimon says suffocation is more severe than sword. Rabbanan the rabbis say that sword is more severe than suffocation. There must have been once upon a time something else in the Gemara, but it's not here anymore. Any explanation? It's just a simple statement. I will stop here for this evening.